So this week we're talking about balance. Um, well, before we go too far along, does anyone have anything that they want to share that maybe they found this week that was kind of fun? Just like I shared my
Yeah, you've been kind of asking us last couple of classes about some designs that we saw. I put an image in the group chat. So I took another design class last semester, and one of the assignments that we had was basically it talked about or basically our assignment was to create like an image of an animal that was basically as minimal as possible. Like you know one color or just black and then bits of white, but no shading or anything like that. And so, anyways, the idea is super minimal. And so my daughter has a bunch of these. These are called squish-alongs, but they came from squishmallows. I think that's what
yeah.
they're called. But everybody knows about squishmallows. They're in every grocery store and Costco and Walmart, and they're kind of just falling out of every box. I feel like in the aisles that you walk by, we have way too many in our house. But anyways, long story short, I thought that imagine being the designer or working for this company and given basically an egg shape and say make an animal with this and I just think that it's a pretty cool idea to challenge yourself for one, but just putting yourself in the position of making something like this. But like you have an egg shape and you have to make 9,000 animals like go. So anyways, I just thought it was kind of a cool idea since you had us kind of looking at different designs and thinking about that they're able to do so many different types of things with such a basic shape.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, that's good because there was that's making me think about the cryptocurrency that they were doing with images.
Like NFTs.
NFT. That's yeah, the NFT. This could do that for NFTs. I went through a couple of tutorials back then on how to create like hundreds or thousands of NFTs.
Yeah, that sure fell off, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is the technology behind that is really useful. They just with the NFTs they kind of made it popular, but I think that will emerge somewhere else because they
You started cutting out there.
sorry, I have a coughing fit every couple of hours and it just happened to be right during this class. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So the NF the technology behind NFTs is actually really good for things like concert tickets because if they can figure out something like that for concert tickets, then there really would the then you could trust if someone was selling you a ticket that it was a legitimate article. So there's other things like that where uh, the NFT technology can be really useful. And so, sorry, I didn't realize I'd start coughing. So appreciate you bringing that up, Leon. That is something that I think, like the black squares assignment in this class, is as designers, we're always going to be confronted with constraints, and so we just need to be creative with how we handle those constraints.
Yeah, it makes you think outside the box, and you really have to dumb down like what is the, the very, 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 very specific defining features of a lion or, a whale or a narwhal or whatever. And so you really have to like just single out something that you can draw and make very minimally.
No, that's a good it's a good discussion because it's a good discussion to think about that because the quicker you can communicate an idea with the least amount of work is really can be really effective.
Yeah, and
So
the same goes with like logo designs, too. Like sometimes um you want to be able to reprint in different forms and things, and if you make something like crazy complicated, then it could, not transfer so well to different things. So understanding how to make something simple and yet elegant and, getting across the ideas is a pretty cool skill.
there's one of my design teachers, he was specifically talking about logos. And he said with logos, he used the term fitness. How good is the fitness of a logo? And just like you were talking about, if it's going to be really small, how quickly can it communicate what you're trying to talk about? So, and then some companies like Coca-Cola and Nike and Apple, they've spent a lot of money to communicate very minimally their their brand. So, not in this class, but I'm teaching a couple of web design classes this semester. And in every web design class, we talk about who is your audience. And it's funny when students say, "Oh, it's everyone." And then I'm like, "Okay, let's rethink this. Do you want a 92-year-old man? Is that who your audience is? When you put your stuff out there, is that who's going to buy your product? Okay, what about a 12-year-old girl? Is that 12-year-old girl going to buy your product? And then where is your price point going to be? Are those so you really have to think specifically on who you want to communicate to because your brand is the conversation you're having with your customer. And so just think about that as you design. You have to think about, and in this class, I'm the consumer because as you turn in assignments, I'm the one that's consuming and I'm the one that's making the final critique, but also the other students in the class. So you have to think about who is the audience. So that's it's a really good discussion to talk about how quickly can you communicate to your audience what you're trying to say. So, and then this class, it's interesting because I've seen some really well executed designs, and I can't really tell if the student put a lot of thought into it or just came up with a really good design. And then I've seen students spend, I can see just a ton of time on a design, but it's just not working out. And so it's interesting to see those different things. I think it's more a product of time and skill to be able to pull off something simply, just like Leon was saying there. It takes a lot of thought to get something that's simple to communicate a big idea. So let's move on to balance. These are always fun, these cartoons. So we're looking at this and this is showing balance just because this is what we would call asymmetrical balance here, where you've got things that aren't the black planks are the same size, but they're stretched across the art piece. And I wonder on this, because they have the wood on both sides, if they took the wood off, would it tip one way or the other? if it was truly asymmetrically balanced, you could take the wood, the two side slats off, and it would just stand by itself. I don't necessarily think that's the case with this one, but it's kind of fun to think about. And then in this chapter, what I think is funny is the first thing we talk about it, after this introduction, and here's these two paintings that we continue to see every chapter, but you can see the balance that's, even though they're not equal, they're trying to balance these paintings. I like this funeral procession. So let's talk about the balance in this picture. So what are some of the things that make this picture balanced?
The rule of thirds.
The rule of thirds is right. They've got the most. They've got, well, the artist knows where he wants you to end up. Then we've got the hearse there. But what are some of the other things that make this balanced?
The tonal range.
Correct. You've got a lot of dark on one side, a lot of light on the other side. And then it really is black and white and gray. So yeah, this is good. The upper right is, we've got a lot of detail here, and the lower left is, there's almost nothing here. So this is balancing. It does look like if you put some weight to this and then put a fulcrum in the middle, it would just balance. So I think that's why that made it into the book. And then I think it's funny is we're talking about balance, but then right off the bat, they're talking about imbalance. So if this, I'm assuming this is a picture. Is it a picture? It could be a painting. Oh, this is oil on canvas. So what is the imbalance in this?
That little splotch of yellow on the bottom left, kind of.
That's a good observation. We've got the yellow over there.
I guess maybe the trees.
There's like a whole lot of sky with just a little bit of like ground.
Yeah. Well, I think, and we could talk about focal point in this. What does the artist want us to focus on?
Oh, my bad. I thought we were talking about imbalance.
Oh, we are talking about imbalance, but I'm just thinking about this. Like, why does the artist have the imbalance with so much sky and so little ground? What what do you think the artist is trying to communicate? And a lot of what we're going to interpret on this is based on our own, I would say, education, or just how we feel about things like this.
It
It is
wants
really
to
bottom
show
heavy.
how big it is, with the sky looming. It's a big grand horizon that, you see a big space like that with taking up so much of the painting with the sky.
So I think it depends on where people grew up, but there is a huge expanse there with the sky. But for me, I might almost say that, you know, the sky's the limit here, where it just looks like, for me, it seems like a lot of freedom to move around. But maybe the artist is dreaming of flying in the sky. But then the bottom being heavy also adds a sense of stability. So if we've, and then everything is just so flat. I'm going to say this picture was not taken, or I should say, this painting was not done in Utah, because I can't think of anywhere in Utah where I could paint that painting. So I think these are some of the things that the artist is. Some of the things the artist is communicating is probably maybe a place. Let's see if it says. Yeah, in the Platte River Valley. I'm not sure where the Platte River Valley is. So there, and then this work of art here. What are some of the things that you think the artist is trying to communicate here with the imbalance? I mean, as I look at this, I'm trying to figure out, what is this? Bread? So where do you see the bread? Oh, up here in this area. Oh, that's good. I'm seeing this clock in this hand. I can't. It's hard to really make out anything there.
It almost makes me think of a guillotine.
This part for sure. Yeah, I think the artist has titled this transition. I think the artist wants to leave us confused here. And I think that's part of the imbalance, where we've got a whole lot of pink. And it's interesting trying to maybe see the artist's temperament at the time he was, or she was, painting this. Maybe they were just confused and they're trying to get their confusion out on the canvas, and this is what it showed up as. So here, this is supposed to be imbalanced too, but I mean, we know, I mean, this just appears to be smoke. And then here we've got this painting again. We've talked about this, but the imbalance here is we've got a lot more weight on the left-hand side. This is where the artist wants us to end up, is over here. And then making up the story like I've done in my head of what's happening. And then as we look around as we, at least in my mind, I'm making up the story of what's going on by looking at the details that are in this. But this painting is really imbalanced because all of the weight is right there. If you were going to put this on the fulcrum in the middle, it would tip over to the left. But this is where the artist is using their skill to push our focal point there, because that really is imbalance in the painting. So here's, we've got symmetrical balance. It's funny, my wife always liked the symmetrical better. She always likes the pictures in the middle of the room. And I like the asymmetrical, where we've got, it's balanced, but we don't have the same thing on both sides. And this is interesting here. We've got, if you look at Audrey Hepburn in this picture, it looks like she's fairly balanced. I mean, if you look really close, you can see there's differences, but what's fun is they've got split it right down the middle, and I think they've over exaggerated. I think they could have made it look more like her by, I should do this in Photoshop and get a better view, because they've made her face wider here than they did here. And it's interesting because as we look at Audrey Hepburn, at least for those who are familiar with her, she always, this is obviously her, but if I saw this, I would not see Audrey Hepburn, even though it's really similar. And we're actually, and you can tell we're using this side of the painting, or I think this is funny because this is supposed to be symmetrical, but the more you look at it, the more you see it's not really symmetrical. There's just small variations on each side of what would be the middle. This is fascinating here, how symmetrical this building, and at least the camera angle here, has made the view. I mean, you could draw a line right down the middle. If you look over here on the sides, there's some of the things that are different between these two sides, but it's pretty symmetrical. And the architect and the designer who came up with this whole scenario here had that in mind. Hold on, I'm gonna bring this up. I like this one. Justine and Ulrich. It's really cool that someone would let the artist have that much. I wonder how long this person walked around like that. This is not as drastic. But it's interesting. Francine 56, Catherine 23. So Leon, did he just split the faces and Photoshop those together?
Yeah, so he took, family members like the top were cousins, and that that last one you looked at was a mom and a daughter, and then the two daughters that were sisters, and yeah, just took portraits of them and then split their face down the middle, and then kind of showed basically what they look like together.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool project to see the familiarity. So like they look a little bit weird, but honestly, like like not that different, right? Like
Right.
they they
Yeah,
might not be the most
this one
attractive, but
this one is amazing how similar the two faces are. Yeah, that is crazy. This one's funny. You can't even tell that that's two people. If they would have just got Vincent over here to close his eyes a little bit more, it would be hard to tell. Twins, that's not fair. Wow.
yeah,
Thanks for
just
bringing that.
I thought that was a cool idea
That
when you were
is,
looking at that picture of Katharine Hepburn.
yeah. And then I like this because that really is, they've just split that in half. But I mean, it's a cool message.
Yeah, that's called a palindrome when you can
Right.
spell something forward and backward.
But the fact that they did that on a painting,
Totally.
yeah, just it's amazing that because at first I looked at this and thought it was a photograph. Somebody had photoshopped that on there, but then that's a painting. So that's really crazy. Interesting. This is the tiny thing that you showed us last week. So here's asymmetrical. And I think we see this a couple of times throughout the semester. I mean, this is really cool photo.
Her face almost looks a little blended with another person after we looked at those other shots.
Yeah, that's true. So the other thing is we look at this photograph. And I want to make sure this is a photograph and not somebody painting something. Oh yeah, this is. So how much of this was set up? I mean, as you look around, like whatever the photographer's done over here in the left-hand side, whatever this is, we can't really tell. But I don't think that was an accident. I I mean, personally, I think this was all set up. The way the lighting is, and like Leon, the way you pointed out, the way the lighting is almost looks like it could be two people. And then I wonder how many actual photographs are taken to get to this one. So this was taken in 1984. So Photoshop wasn't available in 1984. We could whip stuff up really quick like this with Photoshop. I mean, create the lighting and everything that we wanted. Probably in less time than the photographer took to do this. I always think this is interesting because I'm sure this is in a gallery someplace just hanging on a wall. It's too bad we can't get in closer and read what was on there. So looking at this, what are some of the things that the artist does on this particular? I'm going to call it an installation. What are some of the rules that this artist is using? So something that this artist, I'm just going to point this out, something that this artist is using is the Fibonacci sequence numbers to do this. I mean, he's got 1, 1, 2, 3. And probably, I think the idea is if you put a fulcrum in the middle instead of, it would balance on both sides. I think that's the artist's intent here. But I don't think the numbers were an accident and that he is using or she is using the Fibonacci sequence in that. Has anyone been to Sevilla, Spain and seen this bridge? I have not been there, but that looks like an amazing feat of engineering, whatever the engineer did with this. Let's see, when was that taken? Yeah, not only that is whoever the photographer was really good. Or maybe just got really, really lucky. But I doubt it. So here's some more asymmetrical balance. And I don't know because this doesn't say this, but it would be really fun if the amount of black in this is exactly the same as the amount of black in this. The amount of black on the right and the amount of black on the left is the same amount of black. And here's another one. I'm not sure what platinum print means. But I think this is trying to go for the same effect. The amount of black on the right maybe is the amount of the black on the left. That makes me want to try something like that. I like this one. So let's talk about what the artist is trying to communicate here with what are some of the imbalances that we see in this? Sorry, Matt, I didn't see your comment about the harp, but that is true. That bridge did look like a harp. So what are some of the imbalances in this painting?
I'd say maybe the size of the figures.
That's true. That creates an imbalance.
There's the dark values in the outfit of the man with the lighter values in the outfit of the woman.
Right?
And yeah, that harp bridge was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then the colors, the differences between the red, the white, and the black. What is the I'm wondering here. This is just if they're of the same social status. So the offering the penal here. So this, I'm guessing this lady is offering this guy a drink. And so we're wondering, so he's supposed to be a bullfighter. And I think she's offering him the drink to get his attention. Just because he is dressed up. He's definitely dressed to impress, that's for sure. And that may add to the imbalance, the difference between their, and they may be of the same social class, but being a bullfighter maybe makes him more popular or something. I don't know. Here's some more examples of asymmetrical balance. These patterns. And with the mountain. I think it's interesting with these still life paintings. I went to a museum one time and they had floral shops come in to the into the art gallery and try to set up exactly the same like they do the table settings and the fruit. Some of them had peeled fruit. It was really fun to see what these flower shops had tried to do to recreate what the artists might have been using when they painted it. Try to find some of the ceramic stuff that in glasses. So look at this and what has the artist done to bring the imbalance to balance that photo and not photo the painting. You have a ton of color on the right side, no color on the left side. It's interesting. I think the artist thought that we might get lost out of the edge of the page there, so they bring the frame in there. They don't put anything in the frame because I don't think the artist wants us to focus on that. There's some more asymmetrical balance. Some of what we were seeing in the last week with size is we're assuming the person on the left is more holy than the person on the right just because of the size. Oh, etching in plate. Interesting how much of the story is being told here by the imbalance. So here's this topic that we talk about here is the radial balance. So here, this is interesting because we've got the radial balance going on within the work, and then they've got this symmetry built between these pieces. The wider in the middle, but these have the same radial shapes. This is funny. This is asymmetrical balance, but I think the way this shaped up was, or at least the way this is more by accident, I think, than by design. And then the last one is crystallographic balance. This is where we've just got a bunch of the same elements that they just want us to focus on. This particular thing is a quilt. They want us to focus on the whole thing. And we've got more of this here. They want us to look at the whole thing rather than focus on one particular place. Here's another. It's the Holocaust Memorial Museum. But the photographer here has just done a good job of picking up that crystallographic balance in this picture. And whoever put the architect and the designer, whoever put the pictures up here also is just fun to see the thought and the care and design that went into this. So that is it for today on balance. Remember, we're just learning new terms for this language. It's design language that that's really what we're after here. Give us some new words to use when we're evaluating design. So that's it for this week. Unless anyone else has a question.
People can hop off if they want, but I just have one quick little video I wanted to share with you that I thought that you would
Okay.
appreciate. It's
Cool.
only like a minute or something.
Yeah, so you're welcome to jump off if you want to, but Let's see. Oh, I've got to get a browser open that's got.
So this guy takes logos that and quote unquote fixes them, but I just thought it was, interesting to see him understanding design and using his knowledge of design to put thought into logos, like just way more thought than I have in my brain, I guess.
Oh, wow. I can already see where he's going with this. So much better. They should. They totally. They totally should hire him.
Yeah, and
I wonder if he's.
I
I
think
wonder if
he
he's getting hired by these people.
right. I think he does like three different ones, but um, this one, he says that there's too many pedals, and so he reduces it down. But that's kind of a little bit what I was talking about earlier about making something kind of simple, but also as uh, influential as possible.
Gatorade totally should change their logo. That was so much better than Gatorade's logo. And the British Petroleum one, that's good too. I don't think they would change, but Gatorade really should.
But it's interesting to hear him talk. We're kind of missing some of the key points that he's talking about. So,
Let's see.
if you have time, I would recommend checking it out in the future or whatever. But um, again, just his thought on why these designs should be changed and how he is going to fix them is just, again, when I look at a logo, I just see a couple letters and whatever. But if you're going to go into design, visual design of some sort of job, like understanding some of the things that he's looking at is probably really important. That's not what I do or anything, but I just think that it's cool to see somebody on this level doing stuff like that.
Right. It's interesting because he's obviously doing this for a living. And so he is constantly looking at ways he can improve logos.
Well, yeah, so his business is probably, largely speaking, like people already have a logo maybe, and he's showing you how well he can make your logo better. So like reach out to him and like pay him some money to fix your logo.